Hey, what's up? Today is going to be a little bit different of a video than what you usually find on this channel. This is not a top 5. Instead, as you can perhaps see on my screen, this is going to be a trivia. I have done a couple collaborations with SemperBlender in the last couple of months. It has mostly been test videos in-game in AoE, and we also did a best of 5 1v1 that you can find on his channel. That will be linked below. And then I invited him to find an opponent for a trivia challenge. I would make questions, and he would face off against an opponent of his choosing. And we would make some trivia content. He has a point of view of that competition as it unfolded on his channel. I will link that as well below. Unfortunately, I had some technical difficulties when I tried to videotape that or record it from my point of view as the host. So instead, I'm going to walk you guys through the questions. I'm going to let you play the game just like the contestants did and see if you can beat them and each other for that matter. And when you're done, post your score in the comments below and see who is the best. The contestants, just to go through that, was, as I mentioned, SemperBlender. And he invited his buddy Durengardh to challenge him. How that went, again, check that out on SemperBlender's YouTube channel. Alright, we will head right into the questions here. I will go through the questions that we have played so far, because the trivia turned out to be so long that we made it a two-parter. So only the first part has been played so far. So you'll be able to catch the second part live if you, well, not live probably, because we're not streaming it, but live upon upload at least, when we get to that. That has not happened yet. But we will play the questions that were played in part 1. And again, follow along at home and see how high a score you're able to get. We played a lot of easy pickings in the beginning. We actually cleared out that category. So we will do the same thing here, and that's where we start. Which is the only civ to have been removed/renamed from AoE2? I will not give you much time to think on these questions, but if you want, feel free to pause the video and take as much time as you want. For those of you who have paid attention to anything Age of Empires 2 over the last few years, you probably know this quite well. It is the Indians. Turned into the Hindustanis, some would say, and some would say split into all the different civs of the Dynasties of India DLC. Let's move on. Next question. We keep doing easy pickings. There are 10 of these. 10 questions in each category here, but we work our way through the easy pickings first. Which pro player is famous for not completing forward castles? Again, probably a pretty easy one for those of you at least who follow the competitive scene. That is, of course, Daut, or Darko Dautovic, which is his full name. Next question. That's supposed to be what? What is the Imperial Age version of the units in the Spearman line? So just to explain what I mean by a line, that is of course the different units that are all upgrades of each other. The correct answer here is Halberdier. Again, spelled wrong. Sorry about that. But the answer is supposed to be Halberdier. And the unit line here, that concept is going to come back in other questions. So just so everyone's clear on that, the Spearman line would be Spearman, Pikeman, and Halberdier, finally in Imperial Age. All right, next question. What is the resource cost of a castle for a generic civilization? Correct answer here is 650 stone. Let us move on to the next one. What is the effect of the technology spies? Correct answer here is the LOS, or line of sight, of any player in the game is added to your line of sight. Notice that it is actually any player. You might not ever have been in a situation where this comes into play, but if you play with line of sight not shared with your allies from the beginning of the game, which at this point that is standard to share teammates' LOS from the beginning of a game, but you can turn that off, and then you still have to build a market to see your teammates' LOS. If you've never built a market until the point where you research spies, spies will actually also give you the LOS of your teammates. So now you know that. Let's move on. Name a civ that does not have access to stone walls. There's one legacy, or OG rather, civ here, and then one rather newer one. Humans, an Definitive Edition civ, and of course the Goths from back in 1999. Never got stone walls. Alright, let's move on. What is the cost of advancing to Castle Age for a generic civ? This is of course 800 food and 200 gold. I promise you, this is getting harder. It's not going to be this level. These are the easy pickings. Not going to be this level the whole way through. Name a civilization that gets a discount when researching blacksmith upgrades. Not free, so not civs that get the upgrade for free, but a discount when they actually click the research. There are 3 correct answers here. Bulgarians, they have a food discount. Chinese, that has across the board discounts on all techs, so that would include the blacksmith as well. And then the Spanish, who have their full gold cost, the full gold cost of the techs in the blacksmith removed. Next one. Almost at the end of the easy pickings here now. What taunt is bound to the number 14? So when you open the chat window and type numbers, you have taunts bound to those, right? That are being said out loud to teammates or enemies. And this is, of course, start the game already. Last one in easy pickings. Name a tech that is granted for free to the Teutons. And here, if you had either herbal medicine or murder holes, that would give you point there. All right, now I just gotta check the categories because I don't want to play questions here that were not played in round 1 of our trivia, because those are being saved for round 2, which, like I said, have not happened yet. But we have 4 questions played from the category Name the Civs. So let's do that next. Name all civs. So I need all of them here, without access to Eagle Warrior or Cavalier. So civs that do not have access to either Eagle Warrior or Cavalier. So that would be the Bengalis, the Gujaras, the Hindustanis, and I see that I've forgotten one here. You have to add Dravidians as well. They also do not have either Cavalier or Eagles. So Bengalis, Gujaras, Hindustanis, Dravidians, the last of the Dynasties of India civs, and then Saracens, because as you probably know, they cannot upgrade their knights to cavaliers. So 5 correct answers here. Alright, we keep going on name the civs. Name all civs. All civs that start with B. So the letter B being the first letter of the civ name. It is quite a few. B is by far the letter that starts off the most civ names. Bengalis, Berbers, Bohemians, Britons, Bulgarians, Burgundians, Burmese, and Byzantines. 8 civs there. You need all 8 to get a right answer on that question. Let's move on. Name all civs with access to the steppe lancer. Not that many here. It's only the Cumans, the Mongols, and the Tatars. This will be the last question coming up from the Name the Civs category. And that is name all civs with the Western European architecture set. This is currently Britons, Celts, and Franks. It also used to include the Spanish, but the Spanish have now gotten the Mediterranean architecture set. So these three civs would be the right answer there. Alright, checking the categories again. So we have 7 questions that have been played from the campaigns category. So we'll go through those next. Which character narrates the Barbarossa campaign? That would be Henry the Lion, character from the campaign there, telling the story about Emperor Barbarossa. Next question. Joan of Arc, aka Jeanne d'Arc, is referred to as the Maid of which French city after she relieves the city under siege by the English? So she has this title both in real life and it's being mentioned in the game. Maid of Orléans. Orléans is the French city she relieves from the English besieging it. Next question. What is the name of Attila's treacherous brother who meets an unfortunate end in the first mission of the Attila campaign? His name is Bleda. Bleda the Hun. Next, which civilization do you play as in the Battles of the Conquerors mission Manzikert? This is a showdown in the 11th century between the Byzantines and the Turks, and the player is tasked with commanding the Turks. Which civ do you play as in the campaign with mission names such as the Royal Peacock and the Old Tiger? I do not usually write tiger like that. That's a typo, but it's supposed to be Old Tiger and Royal Peacock. These are missions from the Burmese campaign by Nyung. Next is which standard unit model, so a unit that you can make in a normal random map game or any standard game, which standard unit model is used for El Cid when he first appears in the first mission in his campaign? He appears as a champion. Next, we have the last question from the campaigns category. Which DLC had some of the historical characters that appeared in the campaigns appear in all 3 of the DLC's campaigns? So a DLC with 3 campaigns shipping with it, and historical characters appearing in all 3 of the campaigns. This would be Dawn of the Dukes. That was it for the campaigns. Then we have played a few units of AoE as well. Actually, we have completed that category. So we'll play through all 10 questions about units in Age of Empires 2. Name all the Inca unique units. So unique units here defined as a unit only available to one civilization. So the units only available to Incas is Kamayuks and Slingers. Opening fairly easy here for anyone who has played the game, but it gets harder, I assure you. Which upgrade is most expensive in total resources of Imperial Skirmisher, Cavalier, Arbalister, or Two-Handed Swordsman? So this is not the unit cost, but it's the upgrade to this version of the unit line. So upgrade to Imperial Skirmisher, Cavalier, Arbalister, or Two-Handed Swordsman. Which upgrade is the most expensive in total resources? You can probably guess, at least if you've played competitively, that this is the Arbalister, who has become quite expensive. That upgrade now costs 850 total resources. The cheapest here is Two-Handed Swordsman, by the way, 400 resources there, and Imperial Skirm and Cavalier tying at 600 resources. Name all the Portuguese unique units. So same kind of question as with the Incas here, except we're asking for the Portuguese ones this time. And that would be the Caravel, their unique ship, and their castle unique unit, the Organ Gun. Well, let's move on. Remember to keep up with points, by the way. Count them and put it down below. How many points did you get? And then we'll see who's the champion of this unofficial trivia here. More units. Name all regional unit lines. Regional unit I define here as a unit line available to more than one, so it's not unique, but fewer than half the civs. There's no official definition as far as I know for regional unit, and there's some discrepancy on how people think about that term, but this is my definition, and by this definition, name all of these lines. And by this definition, that would be armored elephants, battle elephants, camels. I put this in parentheses, but that's just because that is one of the units that some people do not include as a regional unit. I do though. So you gotta get camels in there because less than half the civs have camels. Dromons, eagles, elephant archers, steppe lancers, and then Solal warriors, you don't need to have that one. I'm just putting it there because it's kind of a regional unit, but of course no one can actually make it in their own buildings. You don't need to have Solal warrior in there, but all the others you need to have to get points here. We are doing more units. Which unit is available to Poles and Lithuanians, but to no other civs? And that would be the Winged Hussar. The Poles and Lithuanians substitution for the Hussar. Next one. Which unit with which civ can achieve the longest ranged attack? So you need to have a specific civ attacking with a specific unit to achieve the longest range available in the game. And that would be a trebuchet with the Tatars, which can reach 19 range with their unique tech, Timurid Siegecraft, and Siege Engineers. Then you get up to 19 range with the Tatar trebuchet. Name 2 unit lines which has only 1 unit in it. So no upgraded versions available at all, only the basic version of the unit line for only 1 civ. So all other civilizations have more than 1 unit in this unit line, but I want 2 units that exists as only 1 unit in the unit line for 1 civ. A little convoluted, that question, but hopefully you understand what I mean. The correct answers here would be the knights for the Saracens. So the Saracens have knights, but they do not have cavalier, and they are the only civ that has knights but not cavalier. Camel riders for the Cumans, they're the only civ that has camel riders but no heavy camel riders. And the skirmishers for the Turks. Alright, let's move on. What is the base range of a crossbowman? That is 5. So without blacksmith upgrades, that's what meant by base, right? Before you get any university or blacksmith upgrades, the crossbowman has 5 range. Of course, it's weird to ever have a crossbowman with 5 range. It doesn't usually happen because most players would have picked up fletching at that point. So you hardly ever see a crossbowman with 5 range. But if you have avoided all blacksmith upgrades, it's 5 range. Next one. What is the base armor stats of a paladin? That is 2 melee and 3 pierce. So again, here without any upgrades from the blacksmith and any civ bonuses. I probably should have clarified that, but I guess that is the most natural way to interpret this question. That's a generic paladin is 2, 3. Let's move on. This would be the last unit question. Name 3 castle unique units that have an elite upgrade that cost other resources than food and gold. So just to clarify, it can cost food and it can cost gold, but it can't have that combination of food and gold, which is by far the most common combination for the elite upgrades for unique units in the castle. The correct answer here is Camel Archer, Composite Bowman, Hussite Wagon, Kipchak, Plumed Archer, Ratha, and War Wagon. All these units have their unique upgrade, elite upgrade, cost something else than the food gold combo. Let me quick check the next category, which would be unique texts, and we have 5 questions there. So let's play those. What are the 2 effects of the Britain Imperial Age unique tech Warwolf? So I don't need any number values here, but I need to know what are the effects. And that would be an area of effect damage, 0.5 tiles. You don't need that info, but you need to know that it gives area of effect damage. And 100% accuracy. Obviously, you kind of have to know that it's 100% because it's completely accurate on stationary targets. So they do not get ballistics, but it's like an archer with thumb ring without ballistics. So 100% accuracy and area of effect damage on the projectiles. For the trebuchets, I should say. So these are for Britain trebuchets. Next, we have which civ has, it's a typo there, which civ has the unique tech medical core? That is Dravidians, which gives you a 30 HP healing per minute for all elephant units. Dravidians being the correct answer there. What civ has the unique tech Fabric Shields? This is Incas. And the effect is +1/+2 armor for eagles, kamyuks, and slingers. This is, by the way, tech that we're gonna get back to later without revealing any more. Next question. What is the effect of the Frankish Imperial Age unique tech Chivalry? That is stable work rate increase. Again, you don't need the point values or the numerical values here, but if you're curious, they work 40% faster. If you watched any Spirit of the Law video, you should probably take this with a grain of salt, because sometimes the percent values do not turn out mathematically correct in this game, but that's at least the advertised effect. So whether that is actually correct or not, I do not know, but that's what the game says. But the important part here, stable work rate increase. If you have that, you get points here. Next question. More unique techs. Name 3 unique techs that has been discarded as unique techs and is no longer in the game. And both the name and the effect of the unique tech has to have changed. The answer here is the Viking Berserker Gang, the Persian Boiling Oil, the Inca Careers, and again, I mentioned that we'd get back to Fabric Shields. Careers used to increase Eagle's speed, and then the effect was changed to give the units more armor, along with the Kamyuks and the Slingers, and then the name was changed to Fabric Shields. So this unique tech has had a storied changelog history. The Saracen Madrasa, the Persian Mahouts, the Mayan Obsidian Arrows, the Slav Orthodoxy, the Korean Panoxion, the Sicilian Scutage, and the Saracen Zealotry. If you want to check up on what these techs used to do, you can check the fandom pages for AoE. Great source for all these both current and legacy info on the game. I'll probably link that below. That website, great website. Next question. We have more unique texts coming up, I believe, or was it 5? Let me check. Ooh, I almost made a mistake there. We only do 5 unique tech questions. Good thing I checked. Community questions, we don't have that many of those yet. Those will be featuring more in round 2 of our showdown between SemperBlender and Durengardh. We only have 2 community questions to go through now, so let's do that. Which professional player has won the most S-tier tournaments since the release of the definitive edition? This is, as probably anyone who has followed the scene would be able to either know or guess, Hera. Hamza Al-Bahir, aka Hera. Quite the dominant player in our scene right now. Who is host and main organizer of the Warlords tournament franchise? This is probably the most prolific AoE2 streamer. Well, it's not even a question. He's clearly the most prolific, at least that anyone knows of. Daniel Molina, aka MemTV. Alright, that's all for the community for now. If you're a fan of community questions, come back for round 2 whenever we get that organized and uploaded, because there will be more questions from that category. Finally, we have AoE2 versus history, and in that category we have 8 questions to get through today. Despite being a Vietnamese unique tech in-game, paper money is a technology generally credited to which real-world culture? And that would be the Chinese. Of course, the Chinese and the Vietnamese are pretty close to each other geographically, so I don't think it's entirely sure or certain where a tech that is that old originated. So could it be in Vietnam? Maybe. You know, you never know when someone does something for the first time somewhere in the world. And it's also quite clear that paper money has been invented independently of each other, different places in the world. But one believes that China is probably the first place it happened. So China is the correct answer there. Next one. In the William Wallace campaign, an item is featured, but is in fact an anachronism, as it doesn't appear in historical sources until the 1500s, more than 200 years after the events of William Wallace. What item are we talking about? So an item existing in the campaign, but it actually shouldn't be there because it probably didn't exist at all, at least not in that form, during the High Middle Ages and the turn of the 13th century, which is when William Wallace campaign is set, and that would be the kilt. Scottish kilt was not around in the Middle Ages as far as one knows. Alright, move on. 2 pairs of civs, so 4 civs total, but 2 pairs share language for their villagers and military units, even though these languages really historically fit at most one of these 3 civs. What civs share language with another civ? And this is the Byzantines, which share their language with the Italians. They both speak a sort of medieval Latin. And Goths and Teutons also share language, a sort of medieval High German. I'm critical here to the historical accuracy of this, because I really am hoping for a patch that will change the Byzantine language to Greek. I think that would be a lot more accurate. There was not much Latin being spoken in most of the history of the Byzantine Empire. That is a empire based in the Greek culture, really. Medieval Greek culture. Italians, it's hard to say. I can't say it's wrong with Latin. Obviously, Latin was important for the church, which Catholic Church had its base in Italy, in Rome. But, and not just Rome, by the way. You think of the papal or the papal state today, it's just like this little enclave inside Rome. The papal state used to be huge. A lot of what is today like central Italy. Anyway, that's a story for another time. But Italy as a whole, of course, not a country until the 1800s. So this was just an area of all kinds of different city-states and duchies and whatnot, and people spoke a bunch of different languages. Some of them probably spoke Latin, some of them spoke all kinds of dialects that had come in through the migration era from Germanic tribes and that kind of thing. A lot of people spoke Greek, especially in the south. They actually still do. If you go to Italy, south of Italy, you can still find whole communities where people speak Greek as their primary language. Quite interesting. Arabic as well, a lot of Arabs. If you've played the Sicilian campaign, you'll know there are Arabs, especially on Sicily. So yeah, Italian language, I guess you can choose Latin as well as anything else. But anyway. Then the Goths, no one really knows exactly how the Goths spoke. We have written Goth, but not really an oral surviving tradition. For that reason, it's certainly a challenge to recreate spoken Gothic, but High Medieval German is most certainly wrong. And then finally the Teutons, which is the one civ that I can give a pass on having them speak. A clear pass. Italians pass with doubt. Teutons, they're given a High German dialect, which is, at least I've heard, it's supposed to be medieval, so sure, sounds okay. Enough about that ramble. We move on to more AoE versus history. This unit name actually references a junior member of the retinue of a full knight in the high to late medieval period. What unit are we talking about? The unit's name referencing a junior member of a retinue of a full knight. This would be the couturier or couturier. We move on. Despite the internal combustion engine not being perfected into a marketable product until the turn of the 20th century, you can summon an AC Cobra, aka the Cobra car, with the right cheat code in-game. What do you have to type in chat to get this car? And you may or may not have played this cheat, but if you've played this game for some time, you have probably written, how do you turn this on in chat? And enjoyed the immense power that gives you. Next one. There are many things graphically questionable about the Roman centurion unit. In general, it has the look of an officer from the early empire rather than the late Roman times generally represented in the AoE2 Romans. However, we are focusing on one detail about this unit that is an anachronism while also referencing another civ's unique tech. So there's something about this unit that is clearly historically out of place. Not just that it's using clothes that are too old, but it has an item on it graphically that should not be there because it, by all accounts that we have access to, did not exist at the time of the late Roman Empire. But instead, it is being introduced as a unique tech for another civ. What feature are we talking about? And that would be that they have stirrups, which the Romans, as far as we know, did not use. That was introduced later by horse riding peoples coming from the east. And among them were, of course, the Bulgarians, which has been given the stirrups as a unique tech in AoE2. Alright, I'm just gonna quick check. We have 2 questions left in AoE versus history, and that will also be the 2 last questions of the day. And then for the rest of these, you'll have to come back for part 2 later. As any well-versed Goth player knows, if you're up against a strong infantry civ that can match your quantity with quality, your plan B is your gunpowder units, as Goths have access to hand cannoneer as well as bombard cannons. This doesn't make much sense if you historically limit the Goths to the migration era Goths in the Balkans, the Ostrogoths ruling Italy, and the Visigoths ruling Spain during the early medieval era. However, one European country with a solid gunpowder-powered military history from the early modern era, around the 1600s, and later than that as well actually, does at least have a possible reference to Goths in the name of a large island controlled by this country, where you can, incidentally, find a very interesting archaeological dig for the 14th century Battle of Visby. Which country can serve as the missing link between the Goths and their gunpowder units? Very convoluted question, I know, but I find this quite interesting. That there might be a link to the Goths here that you can use to explain why they have access to hand cannoneers. If you follow what I'm trying to get at here and also have some geographical knowledge of Europe, you may be aware that in Sweden they have a large island called Gotland, out in the Baltic Sea, where the largest city, I believe, on that island is Visby or Visby. And there was a very interesting battle that happened there, and just to touch on that, where I believe a lot of the fallen ended up in marsh or like low oxygen environment, so they have been quite well preserved. At least their equipment has been quite well preserved, so it's a good look into the weapons and armor used at the time of Northern European battle in the 14th century. Very interesting. Anyway, of course, the Swedes, essentially a great power, or they were a great power in the 1600s. They had a great impact in the 30 Years' War, which mostly happened in Germany, but the Swedes headed over there, led by their king, Gustavus Adolphus. He had some innovative modern tactics that he employed, which included a lot of cannons and other gunpowder weapons. And that's why we can reference their gunpowder history here. And yeah, Gotland, probably a reference to the Goths. Now, the idea, if there was a link between the Goths and the Swedish gunpowder dominance, it would of course imply that there were Goths in Sweden at the time of Gustavus Adolphus, or at least the gunpowder era, late medieval into early modern. That is definitely a stretch. The reason why Gotland is called Gotland is probably rather that people think that the Goths came from the north and then migrated south and then created these early medieval kingdoms of theirs in Spain and Italy. Whether that theory is actually true is also questionable. Probably more likely that they came from the east of Europe, as with most of these migrating tribes that came into Europe. Not all of them, though. Some came from the north, to be fair. But one doesn't really know where the Goths came from. That's the truth of it. And they could have come from Gotland. And then you can say that the ancestors of these people wandering south and creating the Ostrogothic and Wisigothic kingdoms could still be living in Gotland in the 1600s. So, okay. If that is explanation good enough to give the Goths hand cannons, let's roll with it. Okay. Then we head into today's last question, which is, what unique tech means, quote, rule of the seas or naval dominance or something along those lines in Greek, even if the civ that has this unique tech is quite far away from Greece, both geographically and culturally? How is your Greek, guys? Can you pick out the unique tech that is in Greek? Well, if you can, that will give you some points, and then you should have answered thalassocracy, the Malay, a unique tech that turns your docks into harbors. This is actually a Greek term. I don't know exactly why the Malay has a unique tech in Greek, but I guess it's a fancy word for naval dominance. Cooler than just saying it in English. So there's that. That is the end of this trivia for today. If you've kept up with your points, get them down in the comment below. See if you can beat your fellow YouTube viewers. And if you want more of this, keep your eyes peeled for our next upload for part 2. And if you're interested in viewing this with the contestants that tried this earlier today, SemperBlender and Durengardh, then head over to SemperBlender's channel, link below, and check that out. There's also, by the way, a video in the making that will give you another top 5 list. I am working on it. I've just been quite busy, but it is coming. I promise. That's it for today, though. Take care and have a good night, day, whatever it is where you are. See you later.